In this video we'll discuss how you can use custom settings in a UX component. So custom settings are just a series of named setting values, and you define custom settings by going to the properties pane here and then going over here to custom settings. So when you bring up the custom settings dialog, you can see here you have a list of all your settings, and then each setting has a value that you can define. So for example, the first setting here is called var1, it has a value of alpha. The second setting here is called button label, it has a value which is a string, but the value can also be JavaScript. So for example, if we go over here to this setting called var2, we can see here that its value is a JavaScript object, and therefore we prefix the setting value with JavaScript. And you can see here, for example, for var3 we also use the JavaScript prefix, and then we've actually defined a function definition. So custom settings can be just simple strings, or they can be JavaScript objects or JavaScript functions. So in this case we have two simple strings here. var1 is a simple string, and button label is also just a simple string. So custom settings can be used both in the definition of the component and also in JavaScript. So let's go take a look now at how we use it in the definition of the component. So we'll go now to controls and we'll go to button, and we'll see that the button text here, instead of typing in a label for the button text, we've actually referenced a custom setting called button label. So the value that the custom setting has, that the button label custom setting has, will be used over here when this component is rendered. Then let's go over here to the list, and we can see that this list here has been defined to use a freeform template, and that the template is also a custom setting called list template. So if we go back to our properties here, we can see that button label has a value of button label set in custom setting, and that the list template basically is actually curly bracket first name and then the bold tag last name. So let's go ahead now and render this component. So we can see now that the button label now has been replaced with the value that was defined in custom settings, and that the template over here for this list has been replaced with the value defined in the custom settings. So we've dynamically changed the template of the list to a definition defined in custom settings. So that shows how you can use custom settings when the component is rendered, but you can also use custom settings in JavaScript code. So for example, if I click this button here, display value of setting var2, we can see we get here Fred Boston. So let's go look now at the code that was executed when we clicked this display value button. So we'll go here now and go to the on-click event. So you can see here we're using the custom setting method. So this is a method of the UX component that allows us to either read or set the value of custom settings. So we're reading the value of the custom setting var2, and we're putting the value into a JavaScript variable. But since var2 was an object as opposed to a string, we then can reference the .name property of that object and the .city property of that object. Now let's go to this next button, and we can see that in this case we're reading the value of var3. Now recall that var3 was defined to be a function definition. So the value that custom setting returns here is actually a function over here, and then we can call this function passing in Fred as the argument. So we'll go over here now and press this button, and you can see it says hello Fred. So if we go back now and just remind ourselves of how var3 was defined, we'll see here that var3 was in fact defined as a function. So we started with JavaScript, and then we have a function definition. So let's pause now and pick this up in the next video. So we're discussing now custom settings, and we're showing that var3 was in fact defined as a JavaScript function. And then if we go to var2, we can see that var2 is just defined as a JavaScript object. So now let's go to the third button here on our component, and we can see here that in this case, instead of using the custom settings method to read a value in a setting, we're actually going to use it to set a value. So here we're going to basically change the value of the var2 setting, and we're going to set it to a new object here where the name is Molly and the city is Los Angeles. So if we go ahead now and we run this, so let's go back to working preview here. If we run this right now, the value is Fred and Boston, but then we change the value, so we click that button, and now you can see it says Molly and Los Angeles. So what we've shown now is how custom settings can be used both in your JavaScript code and also at the time the component is rendered, by using the special syntax of custom setting and then the setting name. So next, let's take a look at how Action JavaScript can be used to open up this component and override some of the setting values. So you can see over here we have another component, and this component has a button over here, and this button is designed to open up that component that has custom settings. But because the target component that we're opening right now has defined custom settings, you can see that there's a new property over here that lets me override those custom settings. So if I open up, if I click on that, you can see now here's our target component, and now I can click over here to override custom settings. So this dialog shows me all the custom settings that the target component, which is UX with custom settings, has defined, and lets me override any of the values. So for example, for the button label setting over here, I've changed that to be new button label, and then for the list template, I've changed that to read the value from the field called template on the current component. So let's go ahead now and see how this works. So we go here now, and you can see we have a field here called template. So we're going to be reading the template for the list control from this field. So we've got a default value in there of city. So we'll go ahead now and we'll run this. And so now when I press the button, you can see that the label now says new button label, indicating that we've overwritten the value of the custom setting. And the list now is showing a list of cities, and it's not showing first name, last name as it previously did. Now, since this component here is cached, that means that even if I were to go and change this now to first name and then reopen the component, I still see cities here because the custom settings were set when the component was initially rendered, and we're using a cached component right now. So if we wanted the custom settings to be overwritten every time the button was pressed, we'd have to go back to the button over here and turn off use cached components. So now if we did that and we go back now and we run this, the first time we click it, we've got the template here saying city, and now if we go here and change the template to city state and then we open it up, we can see that the template has changed because the component was not cached. So the ability to define custom settings is a very powerful way to dynamically customize a UX component using placeholders in both the definition of the component and also in the in your component JavaScript. Thanks very much for watching.